Living Dying Project really needs some money. We need donations. We need grants. We need angel investors. We need people to know about fundraising. If you or people you know might fall in that category, do it. Okay, so here's the story. I'm running the Dying Center. Stephen and Ramdas aren't helping at all. They're just gone, right? So I'm traveling all around America teaching workshops. I taught 33 workshops in 1 year. So that's like 2 every 3 weeks. It's like I'm on the road all the time to support this place. And the financial model is you can come there to die. We'll feed you. We'll support you. You don't have to pay any money at all. You just need enough money for 3 things. For your long distance phone bill, which for those of you who are old enough, you might remember there used to be a long distance phone bill. You needed enough money to leave either head first or feet first. You know, that when you died or when you decided to leave, you had to make your way out the door and you had to buy your own medicine. Other than that, we did the whole thing. So they were really not a good business model, if you will. So I had come back from this long lecture workshop tour. I was really exhausted. I was taking a nap in the middle of the day, which was very unusual in those days when I was a young buck or whatever those people are called. And I woke up from my nap and something felt really funny. I was in my bedroom. Something felt really funny. What's going on here? And I looked over to the side of the room and there sitting on my zafu, my meditation cushion, where it always is, was Hanuman. He was there. Wow, Hanuman's in my bedroom. And I was awake. I was not hallucinating. I was not dreaming. I was awake, but I was in this very pure state of just having awakened. And I saw him. I said, "Oh, hi, Hanuman." He's kind of like, "Yeah, of course, Hanuman." And he cocked his head and he smiled at me. He didn't say anything, but the feeling was one of the sweetest, most tender, intimate love that you could ever imagine feeling, combined with all the power of the universe. Boom, right? So I just looked at him and I thought, I'm going to go back to sleep. This is great, right? And then I woke up and later in the day, I had to go over and see Ramdas for some business meeting. And we were talking about this and then I said, "Hey, Ramdas, Hanuman was in my bedroom this afternoon." And he said, "Oh, RamDev, you're so lucky." Right? He was way more impressed than I was. But the point of the story was on the desk in my bedroom was a pile of unpaid bills that we didn't have the money to pay. And the next day or the 2 days later, I can't remember, the largest donation we'd ever gotten showed up totally unsolicited from a female physician who had been at a workshop that I had taught 2 months previously in Phoenix. I didn't even know she liked us. I mean, she just dropped it and there it was, right? So I figured if Hanuman's in my bedroom, and by the way, he still is, although he doesn't reveal himself quite as much anymore, that he knows about the bills on the desk. So it's all taken care of, but you're his hands. Okay. Since I've last seen you, I was in Maui at the Ramdas Legacy Retreat. And there I was with friends that I knew from India teaching. Krishnadas was there, and Rameshwar Das, and Parvati, and Sunanda, and all these people with these Indian names. Jack Cornfield was teaching with his wife, Trudy, or partner. I don't know if they're married. 300 people, 300 participants, 50 other people, staff and musicians and whatever. Huge thing. It was just really a feast of love. It was a wonderful gathering. And meanwhile, back here, the skies are gray and cold, the coldest winter for a long time. I was glad to be in Maui. And I really started thinking about my teaching a bit and how this is like Saturday support group number 140 or something like that. We started right at the beginning of the pandemic to create some community. And I've been kind of going through the whole Rolodex of spiritual practices in my brain of all these Buddhist things and Hindu things. But really, as my practice unfolds over the years, more and more am I just talking about, more and more am I just practicing saying God's name, just remembering God moment to moment. That my practice becomes more and more simple. In fact, there's somebody in the room right now who is in my Wednesday group who was saying, "Why do you talk about all that complicated stuff? I'm here to hear about Maharaji. I'm here to hear about your practice and what your relationship with God is." So I'm going to do that a little bit today. And particularly in the realm of talking about mantra. When I was with Maharaji, he gave me a mantra. In fact, he gave me two mantras. And I was very grateful for that. And in fact, when I was leaving India, I said, "Maharaji, I used to be a scientist. I'm going back to America. I don't want to be a scientist anymore. What should I do?" I thought he might say, "Well, go back to school and become a transpersonal psychologist." He said, "Just keep saying the name of God that I gave you. Just keep saying the mantra that I gave you." And I did come back and I started saying God's name. But I felt that I was such a smart guy and saying the mantra was so simple. And it was such like a kindergarten practice in a way that I didn't really put my heart into it. I was all into Dzogchen meditation and deity practice and all these much more complicated things. And I always looked at mantra as a way of quieting the mind and protecting the mind and opening the heart a little bit. And it's really only been, to be honest with you, over the last year, maybe 2 years, but particularly over the last year, that I've really begun to feel the true power and depth of what a mantra is about, saying a mantra. And I, in my own clunky language, even would say that mantras are magic. That Maharaji said, constant repetition of God's name, with or without devotion, in anger or in lethargy, brings out his grace in the form of blessedness all around. There is no room for any doubt about it. He said, the highest service is constantly remembering God. This can be done by praying, by repeating the name, or by meditating. Now, I meet a lot of people. I just told you about a few of the people I met yesterday. And I find it difficult to see God in everybody. People are so weird. People are so different. People are so beautiful. People are so strange. And it's so easy to be fascinated by all of the differences, all of the strange ways in which people manifest. So, in a way, God's name is our own true name. When we say God's name, we're saying the name of who we really are. And when we really look at it, for almost everyone, the biggest obstacle at all stages of the spiritual path, the biggest obstacle is thought, being lost in the mind. The mind keeps us separate. The mind destabilizes the heart, creating a simple, calming thought. The first stage of mantra really begins the entry point into the heart. And I've even begun using, a few years ago, this notion of looking at my own patterns. And when I see the pattern beginning, that's the cue just to start saying my mantra. I've been doing this long enough. I know what the patterns are. I know what the problems are. I've been to therapy. I've been to body work. I've taken the drugs. I've done the yoga. I've done whatever there is to do. And now it's just, okay, I'm doing that. And that's no big deal. I can just come back to God's name. But what I have found that for the all of the years between 1971 and 2025, that I was not really getting much out of saying my mantra, I've learned a few things that really profoundly changed the practice for me. And I would like to share them with you today. So the first thing is that I just kept saying the mantra with the assumption that the mantra is a heart practice. I would just start pounding out this mantra, and eventually my heart would open up. And it kind of worked. Sometimes it did more than others. I'd say the mantra, just having some faith that it would work. And one thing I discovered, you may remember, I have this healing paradigm where we start out, you're motivated, and then there's the invocation stage, which is essentially mindfulness, being embodied mindfulness. And I thought, I'm trying to start the mantra practice from the heart. I've been ignoring the foundation, right? Like, very often people approach spiritual practice from the heart on up. It's about devotion, compassion, tantra, non-duality. And even mindfulness, people aren't really necessarily looking at the fear, guilt, and shame that go roiling around in the first three chakras. So I thought, what would being a complete beginner at mantra look like? Not somebody, I've been to India and Maharaji gave me a mantra, but how can I be a complete beginner and create a good foundation? In a way, bringing mindfulness to mantra. And that really began to work. So that instead of just pounding the mantra out, as I began, I would say my mantra a few times. And instead of just saying it, I would become aware of what it felt like. What was the vibration in my body? And particularly, I would hear it. So as well as saying it, I would listen to it, right? I was too busy. I'm saying the mantra, right? So saying the mantra more gently and at the same time listening to it. Listening inwardly to the subtle echo of the sound within me, as if the mantra itself is speaking back. And then even paying attention to the space between the mantras, the feeling there, resting in that space between the mantras, the space that the mantra is actually creating. And instead of rushing, seeing the energy of the mantra unfolding in your mind and in your body, feeling the energy, feeling the devotion in space. So instead of just doing it, it's like, instead of paying attention to your breath, you're paying attention to the mantra. You're not worrying about love yet. You're really getting in there with the mantra. What's happening right now? I'm making these sounds. I'm hearing these sounds. It's creating a vibration in my body. And even if I read the scriptures, they say that what's happening is really fantastic. So let me just begin to tune into that rather than just blindly plunging ahead and saying these words. So saying the mantra and even being alert, aware to the possibility that the mantra can become more gentle and more silent, that in some way, eventually the feeling of the mantra begins to perpetuate itself, that the mantra almost chants itself. And I'm letting the whole feeling of the mantra integrate into my being, so that there's a each repetition is done with presence. It's not just mechanical. There's an invocation sense. You're inviting energy. You're inviting this presence rather than just saying as a sound. Feeling how it's affecting your mind, your consciousness, your body, and moving more from the outer chanting to this inward feeling. So that really changed things for me. It really allowed me to get into the feeling of the mantra a lot more quickly rather than blindly saying it and hoping that the mantra itself would do the work. So eventually then, after saying the mantra for a while, and particularly with the way I've just suggested, I would start feeling devotion. And I'd like to talk about two levels of devotion, two levels of saying a devotional mantra. And I would like to point out that I am assuming that we're talking about devotional mantras. There are mantras to get rich, there are mantras to quiet down, there are mantras for all kinds of things. What I'm talking about here are mantras, God's name, or ones that are pointing to God, mantras that are truly devotional in nature. So the first kind of devotion is conventional devotion, what we usually think of as devotion. You have some relationship to the deity. You're the lover of God. You're the servant of God. You're the child of God. You're somebody who needs protection. You're somebody who's grateful. And in Orthodox Christianity, they very clearly talk about letting the mind come down into the heart. You're beginning now to receive as well as doing something. You're beginning to allow the mantra to color the heart. Now, from the standpoint of conventional devotion, God is something that's outside. And the mantra is creating a relationship. It's based on faith, love, and devotion. For conventional devotion, there's no initiation from the guru needed. You're surrendering, you're worshiping. It's a way to call upon and connect with a divine being, surrendering to their grace. And the goal is devotion. The goal is this connection. And here's a quote from my dear friend and devotional singer, Jai Uttal. I just love this. He says, when you love something, you pour your whole heart into it. When you love a mantra, it loves you back. The more devotion you offer to your mantra practice, the more you receive from this living presence. Over time, the sacred exchange becomes a radiant wheel, turning and churning the well of light within your heart. Mantra becomes, then that's the end of Jai's quote. Mantra becomes communication with the divine, truly invoking presence. So it's not just calming, it's not just awareness, it's linking your soul to God, connecting in a macro and micro sense to the divine. And if we can just get to that point, not the stuff I'm going to say next, but if we can just get to that point where we have a way in this very uncertain world, this very anxiety producing world for many people, a direct way to go into the heart. It's like having a life preserver in a stormy ocean. You don't want to be in a stormy ocean without a life preserver, and having a mantra can be that. I don't know how I'm going to die. It might be a lovely way. It might be a traumatic way. It might be a painful way. And I'm pretty sure that when I'm dying, I'm not going to be trying to watch my breath and get a little calmer, that hopefully I'm going to be saying my mantra. I'm going to be connecting in the way that we're talking about here. Having some practice where no matter how gross and extreme and powerful and out of control your emotions are, or how subtle and refined and beautiful, there's a practice you can bring. A mantra can be a tool that can be like a power tool, like a bulldozer if you need it, or it can be carpenter's tools, or it can be jeweler's tools, depending on what kind of job you need in the moment. It's great having a bulldozer when you need a bulldozer. It's great having jeweler's tools when you don't need a bulldozer, and everything in between. So to me, that's the beauty of a mantra. you can grab onto it no matter what the situation is. Okay, so first level of mantra that we talked about, this awareness level, is creating a relationship, invoking, letting this relationship start beginning. Heart level is you're in relationship, and it's important in the heart level to focus on receiving as well as doing the mantra. People get really caught. I know I did for a few decades. I'm saying the mantra. I was so busy saying the mantra, I wasn't having the space to feel the mantra loving me back, the deity of the mantra responding. The response is there, but you have to be humble enough, have enough faith to receive, as well as I'm doing. Okay. Eventually, then, mantra can move into tantric devotion, tantric approach to mantra. And this differs significantly from the conventional devotional approach in terms of intent, method, and even the underlying philosophy of practice. This really isn't talked about all that much. So, in conventional devotion, God is out there. God is better than us. We're devotees. We're down here. God's up there. We're loving God. God's loving us back and forth. Isn't that great? In Tantra, there's a sense of empowerment that the deity is our own true nature. And it's the true nature of all the people around us. So you're saying the mantra and you go into the supermarket and everybody there is Ram or Durga or whoever it happens to be, right? In tantric mantra, it awakens the energetic centers in the body. The practitioner isn't merely repeating it devotionally, but it's invoking and awakening its power through this internal awareness. And very often, tantric mantras require initiation from a guru. And that's a little tricky because not too many people have that possibility of going to a guru and say, please give me a mantra. But we're going to play with that a little bit today. And I'm going to share some mantras that I have had transmitted to me, and I'm going to share them with you. So it's like, it's not that I'm the guru, but I'm the channel from the guru to you, right? So imagine now that you're saying the mantra and that as you're saying it, you are the deity of the mantra, your essential nature, and the mantra itself, the sound, and the deity are the same. So that each time I say Ram, that completely manifests the deity. Ram. That available to you is manifesting that which is ultimately sacred and whole with each breath, with each repetition. Mantras that are not a symbol of a deity, but are the absolute primal energy itself. The sound is the very vibrational body of the deity. In the Kula, let me see if I can get the Sanskrit right, Kularnava Tantra, there is no difference between deity, mantra, and guru. Mantra is the root of all powers. So that what we're saying here is that the mantra is alive. It's a living being. It's not just the word that's pointing at something. It's a living being. And often in Tibetan practice, a mantra is associated with deity practice. So suppose your mantra is Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, which means Om, hail to the jewel at the center of the lotus. Om Mani Padme Hum is the mantra to Chinrezi. It's this guy in the tanka right over my right shoulder here. You can see, those of you who are seeing this in person or get the video. And he's basically the patron saint of Tibet. He is the god of compassion. In fact, the Dalai Lama is supposedly the human incarnation of Chinrezi. He is the representation on earth of compassion. So that as you're saying the mantra, you can visualize Om Mani Padme Hum, the jewel at the center of the lotus. You can visualize in the center of your heart this lotus representing compassion. And in fact, one of my favorite practices is just lying in bed at night and saying my mantra and putting my attention on my heart center. When I say heart center, it's slightly more complicated because, at least in Sufism, there are 3 different heart centers, right, center, and left. And sometimes it's on the left side. I feel this opening. It's almost painful. Sometimes in the center, occasionally on the right, mostly on the left side. But just bringing your attention to your chest, saying this mantra and feeling what's going on there. So, it is necessary to be entirely absorbed in the sound and let it arise naturally. Let the sound intoxicate you. So I would like to mention now, or even, I'm not saying that I have the power to initiate you, but I'm going to tell you some mantras that I feel that I've been initiated into that you can say. And I mentioned Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. It's spelled Om Mani Padme Hum, but it's pronounced Om Mani Padme Hum. And I was given this mantra, initiated into this mantra by Kalu Rinpoche, not the Kalu Rinpoche who is alive now, but his previous incarnation. Very, very beautiful Lama who was one of the Dalai Lama's chief meditation teachers when he was young. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Then there is the Hindu mantra Ram. Maharaji gave almost everybody the mantra Ram. And he didn't give me the mantra Ram, but he gave almost everybody else the mantra Ram. He gave me another mantra, a Christian mantra. And for the last 55 years, I've kept that mantra kind of a secret. I don't know why. I thought if I shared that, it would dilute the power or something. But I was talking to these 2 people who lost their son, who are Christians, and they asked me to share my mantra with them, and I did. And I thought, the mantra can take care of itself. I don't need to keep it a secret anymore. The mantra that Maharaji gave me was the name of Jesus in Arabic, Isa, I-S-S-A, Isa. And I've been saying that mantra millions and millions and millions of times since 1971 or 1970. I don't know. I can never remember which of those 2. Long time. 54 years, 55 years. So there's a Christian mantra, a Hindu mantra, a Buddhist mantra. And you don't have to say mantras. Obviously, I mean, some people are meditators, some people are karma yogis, some people maybe feel that mantras aren't for them. It's completely fine. Once again, I have a certain kind of personality. I don't have the same personality as you probably, because I studied so much mathematics and my mind was so finely trained to discriminate and categorize and compare. Something as simple as a mantra is exactly what I needed. Rather than figuring things out, I needed to move beyond that. Nothing to figure out, just say the name and die into it. Okay. Maybe you need to do more analytical meditation. That's fine. But this is what I do. Uh, I'm so grateful that this is my practice. I occasionally meditate. I'm a meditation teacher that doesn't meditate very much. Maharaji gave me this mantra. He gave me a blessing to meditate. And I think I'm very good at guiding meditation. But really, that comes out of this connection of letting that presence flow through. So it's not me, it's the mantra. When I first came back from India, I noticed that some of my friends got flus or colds or things, and I have pretty good sensitive hands. I could give a pretty good massage. So I would massage people a little bit. They'd say, could you give me a shoulder rub? I'm all tight. And I'd do that. I'd be saying my mantra, and people would have these things happen to them. So I started playing with that. And if just by touching people and saying my mantra, things would happen. And I decided I didn't want to be that guy. I didn't know what I was doing. I was getting in trouble. So I'm not a healer, and it wasn't me. It was the power of the mantra working through me. But that's a possibility that the mantra unlocks the presence of God flowing through you. Finally, non-dual mantra. So here we are now at this stage of tantric mantra. You're saying the mantra. You are the essence of the mantra. The mantra is not a tool. It's not a pointer. It's not a technique. It is the full manifestation of the divine. It's awakening this divine energy in your body with each repetition. But still, there's a me that's sacred and a mantra that's sacred and a you that's sacred. It's still duality. It's sacred duality, but it's duality. And the mantra can eventually take us into non-duality. Ramana Maharshi says, when a mantra is repeated, if one watches the source with a capital S, if one watches the source from which the mantra sound is produced, the mind is absorbed in that. That is spiritual practice. So in other words, that finally we're resting in the divine as we're repeating the mantra. And it begins to occur, you could ask, who is actually repeating the mantra? Where is all this presence coming from? And RamDev, this wonderful, wonderful saint of several centuries ago, I don't remember which century exactly. RamDev means name of Lord of the name. Name, Nam is name, and Dev is Lord. He wrote this tiny little book, famous book about saying God's name. And he had certain slogans. The first one is the name, God's name, the name permeates the entire universe densely. The name permeates the entire universe densely. Everything is the name. The name, in fact, the second slogan is the name itself is form and form itself is name, which is very reminiscent of Buddhist Heart Sutra. Form is emptiness and emptiness is form. And emptiness doesn't mean anything is there. Emptiness is fullness. Emptiness is total interdependence, right? So Maharaji had the power at times. He had the power which he used at times to awaken people's third eye. And there are several stories of him taking people on pilgrimages to holy sites, and he'd open up their third eyes and they could see Ram's name written on every leaf on every tree. at a place that was sacred to Ram. On every leaf was Ram's name. So it takes a certain purity of heart to be able to see that, obviously. But once again, the whole universe is the name. It's all God. In the beginning was, how does that go? John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Right? The Word was God, and it's all God. Christ also said, become like little children. And just saying a mantra over and over and over again is about as childlike a practice in some ways you can get. It's just letting go of the mind. You don't have to figure anything out. You don't have to be complicated. Just have this childlike trust in the name. He goes on, RamDev, in his third slogan, the all-pervading nature of the name can only be understood when one recognizes one's own I. When one recognizes one's own I. When one's own name is not recognized, it is impossible to get the all-pervading name. So the all-pervading name, we've gone from conventional devotion to tantric devotion, and now all-pervading. It's all one. It's all the name. It's all that one presence. So that this one simple phrase or this one simple word can take one from calming the mind and protecting the mind to a direct relationship, giving and receiving love with the divine, to realizing that you are the divine and the sound is divine and all beings are divine, to it's all one, just by saying the name. And my last insight that I've had is that it's so easy to get stuck at one of these levels, because each one, when you go into it, is wonderful. Like to get into the place in that heart stage, for instance, where I'm having this loving relationship, the saying the mantra, I'm feeling love from God, I'm feeling love for God. That's a really great place to hang out. And one can enjoy that so much that one does not realize it's not a big step from here to the tantric stage. That, wow, the name is all form. The name is the deity, right? So that most of us don't have a teacher to be encouraging us, hey, now you can do the next thing. That's something that's kind of up to you. And I'm hopefully a lot more stubborn. You don't have to spin your wheels as long as I did, but it took me 50 years to get to the things I'm telling you right now. and hopefully it only takes you 40 years. Hopefully it only takes you 40 hours, whatever. Okay, one last quote, Swami Ramdas, not Baba Ramdas, but Swami Ramdas. The easiest way to reach or realize Sri Ram, or God, is surely to repeat his most powerful name. Remembrance of name is to remember what we have forgotten, that we are his true nature. We are always he, but our ignorance has made us forget our real nature. Continuous and ceaseless remembrance of Sri Ram is to remove our ignorance and realize ultimately that we are he and he alone. There is nothing but he or she, depending. A pure mind is the first preliminary to our surrendering to Sri Ram. Let us conceive a strong and intense love for Sri Ram. The more intense our love for him, our remembrance becomes automatically more and more continuous and unbroken, because it is our nature to remember that which we love most. One of my Buddhist teachers said, the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. And for a few decades, I tried to be eternally mindful. I tried to watch my breath when I was angry in traffic jams. It didn't work for me. It didn't work. My emotions, my attraction to the world, overwhelmed by mindfulness of all the subtle sensations in my body. But having this devotional quality, for me, brings a certain juice. And I am in no way putting down Buddhist practice. I needed to do that for a few decades to get even to this point that we're talking about. And yes, there are people who their main path is a Buddhist path. I get it. But for me now, my work, my challenge is to see God in the people I'm meeting. And a final story. Maybe I told this 2 weeks ago. I don't know if I did. If I did, I'm going to tell it again anyway. But Mr. Tiwari, a very close devotee of Maharaji's, came to America uh, after Maharaji died. He first came to Radha's house, my friend Radha, back on the East Coast. He eventually came to the Dying Center. He lived with me for a little while, but he first came to Radha's house, and a lot of people who had met him in India were so glad to see him. They came to Radha's house to meet him. And Radha noticed that before each person would come up to him, or he'd go to each person to greet them, he'd mutter something under his breath. He'd say a little something. And when the party died down a little bit, Radha came up to Mr. Tiwari and said, "What is it you're saying before you meet each person?" And he said, "Well, I say to Maharaji, please, Baba, let me see you in this person. Let me see you in this person." So that can be the function of the mantra. You're meeting somebody, you're saying your mantra, you're the essence of the mantra, they're the essence of the mantra. To the extent you love the mantra, you love them. You don't have to like them, but you have to love them. Okay. The end. Okay, that was longer than usual. Ram, Isa, Om Mani Padme Hum. There we have it. So let's open this up for discussion.
RamDev, you mentioned, when you were in India and you were asking Maharaji what to do, or I forgot how you put it. You're an unhappy statistician or whatever it was, but and he said to just keep saying the mantra that he gave you. Are you open to talking more about how how you found clarity, how your path kind of unfolded before you, if that's making sense?
Before I'm not quite clear what you're asking. How it unfolded when?
I guess you kind of just left it at you were told to repeat your mantra, just keep repeating the mantra when you were asking what to do or what your next step was, but you didn't really expand on kind of how you found clarity or how that opened up to you. And maybe that's not something we have time for, you're willing to share publicly, but it was something that I was curious to ask you about.
Yeah, there's no secrets here, but I'm not saying what my path is appropriate for anybody else, but I've been kind of on two paths all along, and one of them is meditation, the other is devotion. And Maharaji, even though he said my only instruction is to say this mantra that I gave you, he also at another point talked to me about meditation and really encouraged me as a meditator. And when I came back from India, I spent a few decades doing a lot of long retreats, mostly Vipassana retreats, but then Dzogchen retreats and some Zen stuff with Suzuki Roshi and Sasaki Roshi and different people. So, and my friends said that they liked me worst right after a retreat and best when I was sick, which seemed to imply that meditation maybe was calming me down, but I was getting kind of a little bit unbearable in my yoginess or something. I don't know. So, and during this time, I was off and on working with Ram Dass, living with Ram Dass, starting the dying center, helping my parents die. There's a lot of stuff going on. Helping my brother die, and helping a lot of people die. So I do think that being around a lot of death deepened my practice immeasurably in ways that I don't fully understand with my mind. And this quote from Trungpa that I keep coming up with, he said, "Until you come into intimate contact with death, your spiritual practice will have the quality of you being a dilettante." Also, during this time, I went 40 years without living with a woman and being kind of a yogi. In fact, when Maharaji first met me, the first thing he did was hit me on the head and say Brahmananda Yogi 3 times, which nobody quite knows what that means and who's Brahmananda Yogi, but apparently it's me. And yogis usually don't get married, and I've succeeded in avoiding that all my life. So my life is my life, and a lot of meditation, a lot of quieting down, a lot of service. And now finally the devotional part is beginning to flourish. And even being more personal. I mean, I worked with Ram Dass and Stephen. Both of these guys were wildly popular, right? I still struggle to fill a room because my personality is such that at first glance, people don't like me very well. It's an acquired taste, right? I'm a little bit off-putting. And when you get to know me better, you see that devotional place, right? And that's just me. So somehow deepening and strengthening that heart quality for you. And I don't know what's available in Bend. There are probably some yogis up there doing this and that, but saying a mantra practice, bring it into your heart, letting the mind drop down into the heart at times. I don't know if that is a clear enough explanation of what happened to me, but for many years, even though I'd been with Maharaji and felt him, and that my main practice was mental and meditative and figuring things out. And I do devotional practices, but they didn't really penetrate into me very deeply up until kind of lately. And I think that's just the I've had a son when the group is over, I'm getting in the car and picking up Declan. I haven't seen him since maybe the summer, I guess, before school started. So I'm really looking forward to Declan coming home, and we're going to spend a week together, and then he's going to be with his mom, and then he's going to come back and stuff. So having a child, being with dying people, my heart is finally beginning to melt a bit, right? My arrogance is being dissolved in spite of myself. Okay. Does that answer your question at all?
Yeah, it does, RamDev. And thanks for sharing. It's good to see you, and it's good to be here with everyone.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like this is maybe a good segue for my question. In the previous question, and this is something you talked about in Maui, and it was a story I heard for the first time when you gave Maharaji a picture of Sita and Ram, and
no, Ram and Hanuman.
Ram and Hanuman, sorry. And the quality in which you gave it to him in a space where it felt like you weren't kind of doing it to give something to to him. That's not an experience I've heard with other devotee stories, and I was wondering if you could talk about that space a little bit more that you were describing.
Yeah, I can. It's a great story. That's Raghu asked me to tell that story when all the people got up on stage who had been with Maharaji, with the exception of Parvati, who was sick in her room. So I was in India, and I'd been with Maharaji a little bit, and I just spent 10 years studying math. And I loved Maharaji, but my mind was so busy. It was just like the metaphor was like I was dying of thirst, and he was this ocean of nectar, and he was pouring it into me, but I was like a sieve, and it was just dripping out of me, and almost a few drops only were left. So somebody told me that Goenka was teaching some workshops in Bodh Gaya, and I came to Maharaji and said, "Can I go study with the Buddhists?" And he said, "If you wish." He didn't seem particularly enthusiastic about it. He said, "Oh, you want to leave me and go study with them? Okay, you go study with them." So I went and I did 4 straight 10-day retreats. It's basically a 40-day Goenka retreat. And it was the first time I'd done an extensive retreat. And toward the end of this, I was meditating 18 hours a day. There was no walking. There were 2 meals a day, and I barely needed to sleep because my mind was so completely still. Goenka put me in a special room because he could see something was happening. And I went into this room, and for an hour, my mind disappeared, and I thought, maybe I'm enlightened. And I got up from the room and had to get to the dining room, I had to walk through the main meditation room. And as I'm walking through the meditation room, a guy stood up and he bumped into me, and I thought, do you know who you just bumped into? And I realized I wasn't enlightened at that point, right? So, but anyway, I was having these remarkable experiences. And right after the retreat, I had to go to Delhi to work on my visa or something like that. And everything was in slow motion. Delhi is totally chaotic. And it was just like everything is like so peaceful. And I thought, it is going to be so fantastic to go to be with Maharaji now, because before I had the devotion, but I didn't have this sense of great clarity, right? So it's going to be the clarity and the devotion. It's going to be fantastic. And I go to where Maharaji was at Dada's house in Allahabad, and there were other people who had gotten there before me and people who hadn't gone off to the Goenka stuff. And people were laughing and crying, and it was the usual thing. And I couldn't feel anything. I was like super calm, and I could see Maharaji moving, form, shape, but I didn't feel anything. And in retrospect, I think it was a deeper kind of impersonal love. But at the time, I was missing what everybody else was having, this romantic, juicy thing happening. So I prayed at the end of the day, Maharaji, please let my heart open. Please let me feel you. 3 days, I went there. 3 days, it didn't happen. And I'm getting kind of worried, like I broke something. So Allahabad is where they have the Kumbh Mela, the place where 10 million people come together without a toilet, if you can imagine that. And now they have toilets, they have porta potties, but back in those days they didn't. Anyway, all these people come together at this astrologically auspicious time, and they bathe in the confluence of the Ganges and the Yamuna River and the astral Saraswati River coming up from another realm. This wasn't that time; it was the winter. But I thought, I'll go to the Sangam, where the rivers come together, and I'll bathe. Maybe that'll help. So I took a bicycle rickshaw. Guy drove me like 45 minutes out in the middle of nowhere. And because it wasn't the right time, there was like nobody there. There's like 1 or 2 people you could see like a mile in each direction on this huge floodplain. And I went into the edge of the river and I bathed myself. And I came out and it had worked. It had worked. I felt like, whoa, my heart is wide open. And I looked around and the trees were just glowing with consciousness. And I thought, this is going to be so great to be with Maharaji now. And I get into the rickshaw and I said, Fort Church Lane, Dada's house, let's go. And we're going. And I realized I don't have any prasad. I don't have any gift that is tradition to bring to the guru. And that there's no bazaar, there's no shops on the way between here and there. And just as I had that thought, on the side of the road is some guy selling Indian devotional calendar prints of the deities. And you've probably seen those in shops, Indian shops, even in America, where they're kind of garish, neon kind of colors. They're kind of like, they're just garish, right? But I thought maybe there's a good one. And I looked and it was an interesting juxtaposition. There's like 1,000-year-old wall with these bad pictures tacked on it, right? And I looked at all of them, they were all bad. And I said, oh, no pictures here. And I looked down in the dust and there was this beautiful picture of Ram embracing Hanuman. It's the premier moment of the Ramayana, right? It's Hanuman has found Sita. He's come back. He tells Ram, I found her. Ram hugs Hanuman. He says, you always have my blessing. Whenever people sing my name, you will be there. And I said, I'll take that picture. And I got the picture and we get to Dada's house. I'm late and it's really crowded because a lot of people had followed us. We had been meditating. There were maybe half a dozen Maharaji people there. And they found out that RamDev was there. It was free. They'd feed you. And if you were broke, they'd give you money. What's not to like, right? So all these people had come. It was like really crowded. And I figured I'm not going to get up to the front, but I don't care. I'm in this like really altered state. But lo and behold, there is a path through all this crowd of people right up to Maharaji on his tucket, which is like a low wood frame, maybe 2 feet off the ground. And I come up there and I have this rolled up picture for him. Now, usually when I would give Maharaji some sweets or some fruit, I would be doing this from a state of, when we were talking about those stages, the very beginning stage of, I need you, I love you, I'm an unworthy devotee, you are the great guru, please accept this with all my humility, please bless me, I'm an inadequate piece of shit, but please love me anyway. It was kind of like my attitude, right? I mean, not always that bad, but that was kind of the underlying self-image that was driving the whole narrative. But this time, I was in this completely altered state. And I had the picture and I just kind of threw it at him, not like in any aggressive way, but it's like, here it is. And in India, before the British showed up, there was no word for thank you, right? If I had it and you needed it, of course, it would just go there because thanking creates a giver and a receiver. It creates a duality. So I gave Maharaji, or maybe more accurately, the picture was given to Maharaji in a state of pretty much non-duality, right? There was no giver and receiver. And he picked it up and he started looking at it. And the atmosphere right up in the front of the room became very thick with love. It's hard to describe, but the air became thick with sweetness. And people in the front started crying and Maharaji tears were coming down his cheeks. And my feeling was he was remembering when Ram embraced Hanuman because he's Hanuman. He was remembering that. And he looked at it for a little bit and then he stood up and he kind of semi-yelled something in Hindi. He gave the picture to Dada and he stormed out of the room and slammed the door behind him and he was gone for like an hour, right? And then the next time we ended up going to Vrindavan, where there's this big, huge Hanuman statue at the Hanuman temple, that picture was framed and it was on the wall behind the Hanuman. And Maharaji almost never kept a gift that somebody gave them. He just immediately give it to somebody else. I mean, Krishnadasa's mother gave him a sweater that he wore, and like a few things like that happened, but almost never did he keep anything. He kept this picture. And my feeling was that I didn't give it to him. It was just given. It was like this pure thing that happened. So that's the story. What was your question again?
I think you answered it. It was more describing that quality of feeling that was involved in that experience, and I really appreciate you opening up about that experience. It's more of an unspoken feeling that you've answered.
Okay.
It's about how you gave the gift and the quality behind that.